As a solo content creator, I love 360 cameras, and if this is not your first time to my channel, then you probably already knew that, because since I started this channel, I have been using 360 cameras to capture all of my riding footage on all of my road trips. I actually started with the GoPro Fusion, then I upgraded to the GoPro MAX, used this for about 5 years, then I upgraded to the Insta360 X4, and now I've gotten to use the Insta360 X5 for a week before it officially launches to the public. So today I want to talk about this camera, some of its new features, and just let y'all see some of the footage and what it can do. So let's get into it. Full disclosure, Insta360 did send me this camera to test and review, but the thoughts and opinions in this video are my own. But if you do decide to get an X5 or any other Insta360 gear from their website, I will have an affiliate link up here in the cards as well as down in the video description. If you decide to purchase anything, I would appreciate it if you use that link. It will give me a small kickback at no cost to you. And for a limited time during the X5's launch, there will be a discount with that code. So check it out. Let's go ahead and dive into some of the external features of this camera, and I will have chapters down below if you do want to skip around in this video. So first of all, you will notice that the X5 does have this pretty cool geometric shape on the outside, but in that geometric shape, there is this fancy new wind guard microphone. You do also get upgraded microphones on the side here, and compared to the X4, I do notice a difference of the raw audio coming out of the camera, especially when you're on something like a motorcycle, where when you're traveling at high speeds, oftentimes you get a lot of wind noise. There's new audio algorithms with the X5, and I have noticed a difference. I wouldn't say that they're perfect, but that might be something that can be updated with a firmware update later on. But there is a huge upgrade in the audio quality from the X4 there. On the X4, if you ever wanted to have really good audio, you had to use the little wind muffs on the sides here, and your X4 kind of started looking like a little alien in my opinion. But they have kind of fixed that with the X5. Another thing that they changed on the X5 is going to be where they put the USB-C port. So now if this camera is mounted, you can charge while you're riding, and it's weatherproof. So if it's raining outside, you're going to be totally fine. But also that means that it's not going to interfere with the stitching of this camera if you do have it plugged in. Moving on to the bottom of this camera, the X5 now features a magnetic mount, which is a huge upgrade in my opinion. I had actually bought the quick release mounts for my X4 because I just don't like using the little screw on the bottom. I've been using GoPros for so long that I still am very, very used to having the prong system for all of my mounts, and I just don't know if I always trust that little screw. I'm just gonna be honest with y'all. So I really like that the quick release mount is there, and it does work with all of the other quick release things from Insta360. And last but not least, definitely one of my favorite features of this new camera is the all new, extra durable and replaceable lenses. This is a game changer for the 360 camera market. There's some dust, and I'm just gonna clean it off on these 100% cotton overalls that are not soft at all. Haters will say it's photoshopped, but these lenses are still crispy. In fact, Insta360 is so stoked on these new lenses that they won't even send out lens protectors with the camera kit anymore. So if you still want those, they do exist, but that's how much Insta360 stands behind these new lenses on this thing, is they're saying you don't even need to protect these lenses. Now, personally, I haven't had my X4 long enough to deal with potentially scratching the lenses. However, I heard that was a big deal with the X4. I also know a lot of people who have scratched their lenses on their GoPro Maxes a lot. I didn't have a lot of issues with that. I just get lots of bug guts on my GoPro Max. But if you're someone who is just really rough on your stuff and you're kind of clumsy, for lack of better words, this is going to be a great upgrade for you, because maybe you back your bike into some trees here and there. Oh. Narissa, I'm looking at you. This is going to be a huge upgrade for you because now you don't have to worry about messing up your lenses all the time. Now, with all those positive things being said, I am going to keep it real with y'all and be very honest. I wish that the Insta360 X5, X4, all of their 360 cameras, I just wish they were a little bit smaller. I love the size of my GoPro MAX. When you hold them up next to each other, there is a bit of a difference there. However, with the X4 and the X5, the image quality is so much better than this GoPro MAX that I can kind of, sacrifice the size of this for better image quality. And that leads me into our next topic, which is all the internal features of this camera. And the first one that I want to talk about is, of course, going to be image quality because there is a giant new sensor in this camera. So the Insta360 X5 does feature a 144% larger sensor than the X4, and it does have 13.5 stops of dynamic range, which is pretty impressive for a camera this size. I personally loved my footage from my X4, so honestly, when I was comparing a lot of it, it was kind of hard to tell if the X5 was really that much better, but then I got it on my desktop computer and I started zooming in on a lot of my footage, and when you start getting into the details and clarity of the footage, you can totally see a difference.
The X5 uses what is called 11K super sampling technology, and basically what it does is it elevates the image quality of exported 8K videos. So it's super vibrant, there's super sharp details, there's just so much in this footage. It is definitely an upgrade over the X4 once you really get to look at it on a computer.
Now, does everyone need to shoot in 8K 30 frames a second like I do? No. Actually, 5.7K 30 frames a second or 60 frames a second are still both quality modes on the X5 and the X4, especially if you're someone who's going to be using this camera a lot for like social media applications. Like, let's say that you just want to make Instagram reels or TikToks or Facebook reels or YouTube shorts. I think that you're going to be perfectly fine shooting at 5.7K 30 frames or 60 frames a second. I am bougie and I really like maximizing the quality of my footage, so I am always going to prefer to shoot in 8K when possible. But yeah, overall, I am pretty impressed with the quality of this footage, but where you can really tell a difference in the quality with the X5 is its all new PureVideo Mode. This is something that's available in the Ace Pro 2, but now it's available in the X5, and it is a game changer at night. I was already pretty impressed with the X4's night footage, and for that I usually shoot in 5.7K 30 frames a second. Here's a couple clips from Daytona when I was riding down Main Street. And it is definitely significantly better than the GoPro MAX's nighttime footage. However, this new PureVideo Mode really takes it up a notch, and because you can shoot in 8K, you can just get such good quality footage. And that is one thing I really wanted to point out. My bike vibrates so much, it's a wild hog, and I can ride at freeway speeds, and this camera still provides pretty clear nighttime footage at any speed. Even when I'm going through bumpy downtown city streets, it has worked out so well. I've been so impressed. There are a couple times where you'll see some jitters in the footage, but overall, for a camera this freaking small, like, look at it compared to the size of my head. It is pretty small. I know I just complained about the size of it, but all things considered, the quality of footage you can get out of this little thing is quite impressive. I also took this camera down into Mammoth Cave National Park. I did shoot in the cave with it, which that's a pretty dark place. And it definitely struggled a little bit with certain lighting situations, but that isn't a stereotypical scenario of how I would probably use this camera. I probably wouldn't go caving with this. So overall, for my typical application, which is motorcycling, it works really well. The last new feature that I wanted to mention about the X5 is that it does have an all-new battery. So if you're someone like me and you like to carry multiple batteries with you when you're on a road trip, unfortunately, you can't use your X4 or X3 or X2 batteries in this camera. You are going to have to get probably, honestly, just one spare battery. You won't need 2 or 3 because this camera does have quick charging capabilities. It will charge up to 80% in just 20 minutes. So if you stop somewhere and grab lunch, you can just plug the camera in and get almost a full charge, if not a full charge, depending on how long you're sitting there. And this does get up to 185 minutes of battery time depending on how you shoot. Now, I didn't do any science experiments. I didn't, you know, put it in an oven like some content creators do and like put a timer with it and see how long it'll last before it shuts off or overheats or the battery dies. I didn't do any of that crazy stuff, but I shoot in 8K, so that battery time does dwindle quicker because I prefer to use more power to shoot my footage, but that's just me. So like I said, 5.7K on this camera is still pretty good. I'm just bougie and I want the nicest quality footage possible. So that's going to wrap it up for most of the upgrades to this camera. I did want to mention a few other features that might be beneficial to you, and maybe it's just something that you want to know about. There is so much in this camera that I still have not played with. There's still so much in the X4 that I haven't played with compared to my GoPro MAX, which I had for 5+ years. These are just such new cameras that there's still a lot to learn in them. A lot of modes, a lot of things you can do. But one thing I think for motorcyclists that is really nice to know is that it is Bluetooth compatible. The X4 was the same way. So if you have a Sena or a Cardo, you can hook up to this and moto vlog out of it or talk with it. Now that's something I wouldn't recommend doing as like this being your only camera, but let's say that there's just something real quick that, you know, maybe you want to just record something quickly while you're riding, you can link it to your camera. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't work with Lexan headsets, or at least when I tried to link it, it wouldn't work. But I did just get a Cardo PackTalk Pro, so we'll see if it works whenever I finally install my new headset. Now, one thing I have noticed internally on this camera that I did want to mention, maybe you're someone like me who came from the GoPro MAX platform, is that the new user interface in this camera, I don't know if this will relate to the X4 and other Insta360 cameras, but under the quick capture settings, and this is something that I personally use very often, you can now have it use your last shooting mode automatically, which is huge. This was something I used all the time in my GoPro MAX and I loved it. Previously on my X4, you basically could only do one quick capture setting and it was basically like a quick key. And so if you pressed it, it was just gonna shoot exactly what was stored in your quick capture settings. You couldn't just press a button and, you know, basically resume shooting. So for me, that was a huge upgrade and that was something I really missed from my GoPro MAX. So thank you, Insta360, because I was so hyped to see that in here. That might not be a big thing for some people, but it was a big deal for me. Especially being on a motorcycle, you know, you don't pull over and change the camera settings on your camera while you're riding. You just want to click a button, record, and go. And then when you're done, click it again and turn the camera off and save that battery life. So that is something that I'm so stoked about that new setting. So yeah, overall, I've been really impressed with the X5. It's definitely a huge upgrade over my GoPro MAX. And I know some people watching this are like, why do you keep comparing it to that? But if you're someone who's watched my channel for a long time, you know that I have a ton of experience with that camera. And so many of y'all ask me, you know, Insta360 or GoPro MAX. So I do want to make sure that I do touch on those things in this video. But that leads me to my next question. You know, should you get an X5, an X4, or GoPro MAX at this point? And personally, I think that the GoPro MAX doesn't even stand a chance against the X4 and the X5. I think that the GoPro MAX definitely is an upgrade over the X3, personally. But it's hard to say if you should get an X4 or an X5 because unfortunately I don't know what the price of this camera is. As of April 20th, 2025, which is when I'm shooting this video, the camera officially launches in a couple of days. Insta360 hasn't given me the price of this camera. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it is roughly the same price as the Insta360 X4 when it first launched last year. If it is, I would definitely recommend getting an X5 over an X4, even if the X4 is now discounted. It is totally worth it just for the new lenses. Like, this is huge. This definitely is something that is worth spending the extra money on this camera over the X4. Because if you do break your lenses and you have to send it into Insta360 to have them replaced on the X4, I think it's like $120 or something, if I remember correctly. I did look it up on their website at one point in time. But yeah, that alone I think is worth the extra money, but it just depends. Is this gonna be an $800 camera or is this gonna be, you know, a $500 camera? No one really knows yet. So I will say if it's around the $500 mark, absolutely, I do think it is a huge upgrade from its predecessor, but if it has that big sticker tag, I don't know. I might be a little bummed, I'm not gonna lie, but hopefully this video gave you guys some insight on this camera. Like I said, I've had a week using it, so it's still pretty new to me, but I am pretty hyped on it. And while I was hyped on the X4, I do really enjoy this camera even more. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. My X5 says it's time to go. And I will see y'all on the road. Later, y'all. Lanky, come here, little. This is Lanky, because she's long. You want to say hi to YouTube? Samanya. Hi, Winkle. All right, let's go inside. Mom has to film a YouTube video.